so happy we alive.
In society and are hard to identify because they don't want to give away what would normally stigmatize. And one of the most important effects of 215 was that it encouraged pot users, certainly a stigmatized population, to go talk to their doctors. It dates back to 1914, and it's been based almost entirely on a fear of addiction as it existed back in 1914, and it hasn't changed much since then. The key maneuver to establish this policy was to convince the Supreme Court to hand over addiction medicine, or the treatment of addiction, medical decisions about addiction, to non-doctors. In those liberation, female liberation, ferment, and then Richard Nixon entered the White House, and the first thing he did was declare a war on drugs. He also had a golden opportunity because the Harrison Narcotic Act had been threatened by a Supreme Court decision, and drug prohibition needed to be rewritten at that time. Other incidental data, this is just partial profile. As I said, 72.5% had tried shrooms. 87% of all white males have tried shrooms. LSD has also been very popular. Heroin, the dread drug, is the least favorite, although it's an interesting bellwether in terms of severity of disease and other complications.
We can take to get from where we are to where we want to be. And we've made enormous progress. I'm going to talk for a minute about public attitudes. And in fact, I think we've largely won the hearts and minds of most of the American people. We haven't figured out how to go that next step and get that political support that should come with it. But let's talk for a minute about why we've gotten where we've gotten. We've gotten because a number of marijuana smokers, consumers, have been willing to come out of the closet, to get up, to stand up, to light up, and let America know how we feel. To the extent we continue to remain in the closet and smoke surreptitiously, I'm not sure we can ever get the political goals we want. It's not that I think we need to blow smoke in the public space, but there are some solid reasons why, until we come out of the closet, we can't win our rights. Now, by the way, having said that, let me also quickly recognize that I know not everybody who smokes can come out of the closet, because for some people you lose your job tomorrow, you couldn't support your family, you might have fractures in the family relationship. So that's a difficult decision that has to be made with a lot of discretion. But I do think that we have the courage to come out of the closet and to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with smoking marijuana, we are not going to win our freedom entirely. Now, starting with myself. I first smoked pot 40 years ago when I was a freshman at Georgetown Law School in 1965. I've been a regular pot smoker ever since then, and as my friend and colleague, our friend and colleague Mickey Norris likes to say, I smoke pot and I like it a lot. Marijuana obviously improves the taste of food, it improves our appreciation of sex. There are lots of good things that grass does and that we all hear about and read about and experience, and I think that's terrific. But first, to stand back and get a second perspective on our life and on our complex careers and on the problems we're having with our neighbors or our loved one or whatever, relationship with the rest of the world than I did before I smoked marijuana. Now,
and as a result of that, he came to Washington in, I think, 1971 or 2, I'm not sure which year. And he was going to the National Student Association conference because he was the president of a student body. But while he was there, he couldn't pass up the chance to go over and see what was happening at the first People's Pot Conference, which was what we foolishly called the first normal conference. We didn't know we were supposed to use the People's Pot Conference. And it was at a church in Washington, and our only big, Alan was from the, I swear I don't know which church now, DuPont Circle. And Our only victim of the conference was a wonderful actress from Fort Worth, Texas, who wanted to dry his marijuana on the hood of his car, and the police were about 40 yards away, just looking at everything we did. So he came and arrested him, and I went and got him out of jail. It was part of the deal back then. If you held a conference for normal, you knew you were going to have some people arrested. Now,
this is a very uphill battle, particularly when you're talking about at the federal level. In some ways, that shouldn't be surprising. You know, the federal government's usually slow to react. In fact, they were slow to react to a marijuana prohibition. People tend to talk about the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 being what criminalized marijuana in this country. What they actually leave out is the fact that every state had already made marijuana illegal prior to 1937. The federal government only did it after the fact. And unfortunately, I think the federal government, when it comes to the issue of legalizing medical marijuana or decriminalizing and or legalizing marijuana for personal use, once again, they will be the last to act. They will follow the state's lead. And fortunately, we do find a much more receptive audience at the state and local level than we find at the federal level. It's frustrating being in Washington because you're so close to the federal government, but I would encourage people who get involved with this issue that if you want to try and enact change, begin at your local level, your county level, and then work your way up to the state, where we have had within state legislatures
I co-founded the Marijuana Policy Project 11 years ago. It was in January of 1995. I've been running it ever since. It grew from being just 3 guys working out of their homes, me being one of the 3, to a staff of about 26 people now. We have offices in Washington, D.C., Vermont, Hollywood, and San Francisco. We're running a statewide ballot initiative campaign currently in Nevada. In November of 2006, there will be a question on the ballot that, if it passes, would tax and regulate marijuana similarly to alcohol, which, as many viewers will know, has not been accomplished anywhere in the world. So if we pass this initiative in Nevada, which is currently polling at about 50-50, Nevada would have the best marijuana law in the world. And that is our flagship project for 2006.
Wow.
In addition, years. In 2004, we actually passed a medical marijuana bill in Vermont. The Republican governor, let it become law without his signature. A couple months later, in 2004, we passed a statewide medical marijuana initiative excuse me, in Montana, and Montana voters passed with 62% of the vote in that initiative, which now allows patients to possess, use, and grow their own marijuana for medical purposes. That initiative got 3% higher support than George Bush got in Montana. And then most recently, January 3rd of 2006, we persuaded the Rhode Island legislature to not only pass the medical marijuana bill, the governor vetoed it, they overrode the governor's veto, and medical marijuana became legal in Rhode Island, making Rhode Island the 11th state where medical marijuana is legal, and that program is now up and running.
Wow. Bloody black trail, doing the damnedest, the hell out of hell, wandering a bloody black trail, doing the damnedest. To bang the big bell, the big bell. I come from the Southland, Derby City. I come from Southland. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky.